Hey, buddy, hit that subscribe. Just a sec for you, but it means the world to me. Nobody ever thinks life can flip on them that fast. 1 minute, you're running meetings, signing papers, feeling like you own the damn world. The next minute, you're stuck at a red light, staring at a homeless guy on the corner, and something about him just won't let you look away. That's how it started for Daniel Carter, a well-known businessman who built his name from scratch. He had money, respect, and a reputation for being cold but fair. Emotions? He buried those years ago. Or at least, that's what he told himself. Daniel noticed a man because he didn't beg like the others. No shaking cup, no sad puppy eyes. Just a cardboard sign that read, "Trying to start over." The guy's clothes were worn, his beard messy, but his posture was straight, almost proud. That's what hit Daniel in the chest. Something about that man felt familiar, like a ghost from a life he locked away and never talked about. Daniel told himself to chill. It was just another homeless dude. Big City was full of them, but his foot stayed frozen on the brake, and his eyes stayed glued. As traffic moved, Daniel rolled down his window without even thinking. He handed the man a few bills, more than he normally would. The man looked up, and for half a second, their eyes locked. Daniel felt it, that weird punch in the gut. The man's eyes weren't empty. They were sharp, intelligent, hurt but not broken. "Appreciate you," the man said quietly, his voice calm, not desperate. Daniel nodded and drove off, but his heart was racing like he'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to see. That night, Daniel couldn't sleep. The man's face kept replaying in his head. The eyes, the voice. It reminded him of someone from his past, someone he hadn't seen in years, someone he walked away from when life got complicated. Daniel tried to shake it off, telling himself he was tripping over nothing. But deep down, he knew better. This wasn't random. Life didn't work like that. Not when it hit this hard. The next morning, instead of heading straight to the office, Daniel took a detour. Same corner, same traffic light, same cold breeze cutting through the street. But the man wasn't there. Daniel felt irritated, like he'd missed something important. He parked nearby and waited. Minutes passed. Then finally, the man appeared, limping slightly, carrying a small backpack like it held his whole world. Daniel stepped out of the car this time. Up close, the resemblance hit even harder. "Hey!" Daniel said, trying to sound casual, even though his chest felt tight. The man looked up slowly, clearly cautious. "You good?" Daniel asked. The man nodded. "I get by," he replied. That answer hit different. Daniel had used those same words years ago when his life was falling apart. That's when the fear crept in. What if this wasn't just some stranger? What if this was someone he once knew, someone he failed? Daniel offered him breakfast. The man hesitated, pride fighting hunger, but finally agreed. As they walked, Daniel noticed the scars on his hands, the way he spoke, educated but guarded. This wasn't a man who belonged on the streets. This was someone who had been knocked down hard, real hard, and Daniel was starting to realize this story wasn't about charity. It was about consequences. As they sat down to eat, Daniel asked a simple question. "What's your name?" The man paused, just for a second too long. Then he answered, and the name he said made Daniel's blood run cold. Daniel had spent years running from his past, but now it was sitting right across the table from him. And if that name was real, then this wasn't coincidence. It was karma knocking hard. The moment the man said his name, the noise in the diner faded out. Forks clinking, people talking, the coffee machine buzzing. It all went dead quiet in Daniel's head. That name wasn't common. It wasn't random. It was a name Daniel hadn't heard in over 20 years, a name he buried under success, paperwork, and expensive suits. His hand tightened around his coffee mug, so hard the heat didn't even register. Daniel forced a fake smile. "That's a strong name," he said, playing it cool, even though his heart was beating like it wanted out. The man, Ethan, studied him closely, like he was trying to read what wasn't being said. There was tension in the air now, thick and uncomfortable. Ethan finally broke it with a dry chuckle. "You look like you've seen a ghost," he said. Daniel laughed it off, but inside, he was spiraling. Because ghosts don't usually sit across from you and ask for sugar. They ate in silence for a bit. Daniel noticed the way Ethan ate, slow, controlled, like food wasn't guaranteed. That messed with him more than he expected. "So, what happened?" Daniel asked, keeping his voice neutral. Ethan shrugged. "Life," he said. "People make choices. Some pay for 'em harder than others." That line landed heavy. It sounded personal. Too personal. Daniel felt like the words were aimed straight at him. Ethan eventually opened up, just a little. He talked about bouncing between jobs, bad luck stacking up, one mistake turning into 10. No sob story, no begging. Just facts. Cold, ugly facts. Daniel listened, guilt creeping in with every sentence. Because parts of Ethan's story lined up real clean with chapters of Daniel's own past. The parts he never talked about. The parts where he chose ambition over responsibility. When Daniel asked about family, Ethan stiffened. His jaw tightened, eyes dropping to the table. "Ain't got none," he said. Or at least none that gave a damn. That was the moment Daniel knew. Not suspected. Knew. The timing. The age. The look in his eyes. This wasn't coincidence. This was a past showing up uninvited, looking rough, and asking for nothing. Daniel offered to help. Temporary help. He told himself. A motel room. Some clean clothes. Maybe a job connection. Ethan hesitated again. Pride wrestling survival. "I'm not looking for a handout," he said. Daniel leaned in. "It's not charity. Call it the reset." Ethan finally agreed, but his eyes stayed cautious, like he expected the floor to fall out any second. Later that day, Daniel made a call to his assistant, arranging everything quietly. No paper trail. No questions. But as he watched Ethan walk into the motel room, carrying that same beat-up backpack, Daniel felt something twist inside him. This wasn't helping a stranger. This was trying to fix a mistake that had been festering for decades. That night, Daniel dug through old files and locked away memories. He found documents he swore he destroyed. Dates, names, proof, and every piece pointed to the same ugly truth. Ethan wasn't just connected to his past. Ethan was the consequence of it. Daniel sat back, rubbing his temples, realizing that if this truth ever came out, it wouldn't just ruin his image. It could blow up his entire empire. And the worst part? Ethan still didn't know who Daniel really was. Daniel thought he could control the damage, keep the truth buried like he always had. By the third day, things stopped feeling temporary. Daniel told himself the motel, the clothes, the food, it was just short-term help. In and out, clean slate. But every time his phone buzzed with an update about Ethan, his chest tightened. Ethan had a job interview lined up. Ethan needed work boots. Ethan asked about a birth certificate. That last one, that one hit hard. Ethan showed up at Daniel's office unannounced that afternoon. Security almost stopped him, but Daniel waved him through. The contrast was crazy. Ethan standing there in borrowed clothes, surrounded by glass walls, polished floors, and people who looked like they'd never missed a meal. "Nice place," Ethan said, half joking. Daniel forced a smile. "Yeah, it pays the bills." The lie tasted bitter. They sat down, and Ethan got straight to it. "I gotta ask you something," he said. Daniel's stomach dropped. Ethan explained he was trying to replace his lost documents. Social security card, birth record, all the boring stuff that mattered when you wanted to exist legally. "Thing is," Ethan added, eyes narrowing slightly, "there's some weird gaps. Like, someone made sure certain info never stuck." Daniel felt the walls closing in. He gave vague answers, dodging details like a pro. Years in business taught him how to talk without saying anything. Ethan nodded, but he wasn't convinced. "You ever feel like your life got edited?" Ethan asked, "Like someone cut scenes out and never told you why?" That question wasn't random. It was aimed, and Daniel knew it. Later that day, Daniel met with an old acquaintance, a retired lawyer who owed him favors. Off the record. No notes. The truth came out fast and ugly. Records sealed. Names removed. Decisions made for the greater good. Daniel had signed off on it back then, thinking he was protecting his future. He never imagined the kid would end up sleeping on concrete, Meanwhile, Ethan was reconnecting with the world. A job offer came through, nothing fancy, but honest work. For the first time in years, he looked hopeful. And that hope, it wrecked Daniel. Because hope made the truth harder to hide. Hope meant expectations. And expectations meant exposure. That night, Ethan and Daniel grabbed food again. The vibe was different now. Less awkward, more familiar. Too familiar. Ethan laughed at one of Daniel's jokes, and for a split second, Daniel saw himself at that age. Same smile, same stubborn edge. He almost cracked right there. Almost told him everything. But fear won. Fear always wins first. Then Ethan dropped the bomb. I ran into someone today, he said casually. A woman who used to know my mom. Daniel's heart slammed. She recognized me. Ethan continued. Said I looked just like my father. He looked straight at Daniel when he said it. Not accusing. Not yet. Just observant. Daniel knew the clock was ticking. Secrets don't stay buried when too many people start connecting dots. And if Ethan figured out on his own, the fallout would be way worse than any confession. Daniel thought he'd keep controlling the story. Someone from the past decides to tell the truth their own way, and it puts Ethan directly in the line of fire. The call came late. Too late. Daniel was halfway through paperwork. He wasn't even reading when his phone buzzed with a number he hadn't seen in years. His stomach dropped before he even answered. Some numbers don't need introductions. Daniel. The voice said, calm but loaded. We need to talk. Just like that, the past kicked the door in. They met the next morning at a quiet cafe on the edge of town. Marissa hadn't changed much. Older, sharper, eyes that missed nothing. She didn't waste time. He knows, she said, stirring her coffee like this was small talk. Daniel's heart sank. Not everything, she added, but he's asking questions. Dangerous ones. Daniel snapped back, asking why she'd even talk to Ethan. Marissa leaned in. Because he deserves the truth. And because I'm done covering for you. Meanwhile, Ethan was riding a rare wave of confidence. New job, steady pay, a routine. He started believing life might actually let him breathe. But every good day came with shadows. He noticed people watching him. A guy near the bus stop who asked too many questions. A random co-worker who knew his full name before he said it. Something felt off, and Ethan trusted his instincts. Street life sharpened those real quick. Daniel tried damage control. He offered Ethan a more stable job at one of his companies. Better pay, benefits, real future. Ethan hesitated. Feels weird, he said. Like you're investing real heavy in me. Daniel forced a laugh. I invest in potential. But Ethan wasn't stupid. Why me, he asked. Daniel didn't have an answer that wouldn't blow everything up. Things escalated fast when a reporter started sniffing around. Old records, sealed files, a missing child case that never made headlines. Daniel's name circled the edges of it. Someone was feeding information, slow and strategic. Marissa denied it, but her silence said plenty. This wasn't about revenge. This was about exposure. Ethan found out the hard way. He got pulled aside after work by a woman claiming to be a researcher. She asked about his past, his mother, his father. When Ethan pushed back, she dropped a line that shook him. Your father didn't disappear. He chose. That sentence stuck like a blade. All the late nights, all the missing pieces. Suddenly they lined up. Ethan confronted Daniel that night. No yelling, no drama, just a quiet, dangerous calm. You know more than you're saying, Ethan said. Daniel tried to deny it, but Ethan cut him off. I've been lied to my whole life. I'm not doing that anymore. For the first time, Daniel saw anger in Ethan's eyes. Not wild, controlled, the kind that doesn't miss. Daniel realized then, this wasn't about protecting himself anymore. The truth was already moving. And once it's daylight, it doesn't care who it but. The story is out. The pressure's on. Ethan uncovers proof that changes everything, forcing Daniel to choose between his empire and his own blood. Ethan didn't sleep that night. Once doubt creeps in, it don't sit still. It starts tearing the whole house apart. He replayed every conversation, every coincidence. Every time Daniel showed up right when he needed something. At sunrise, Ethan made a decision. If the truth was being hidden from him, he was done waiting for permission to find it. He tracked down Marissa on his own. No introductions. No warning. Just knocked on her door and stood there, calm but unshaken. "You knew my mom," he said. Marissa studied him for a long moment, then stepped aside. Inside, the walls were lined with old photos and boxes labeled with years. She didn't sugarcoat anything. "Your mother tried to protect you," she said. "Your father tried to protect himself." She showed Ethan documents, copies she kept when things started smelling wrong, legal agreements, sealed custody records, a signature he recognized from Daniel's office paperwork. The truth hit like a freight train. Daniel wasn't just some helpful stranger. He was the man who walked away and paid to erase the evidence. Ethan didn't yell. He didn't break down. He went quiet. That scared Marissa more than any reaction. Meanwhile, Daniel's world was cracking. Investors started calling. Lawyers whispered about exposure and optics. His board suggested a temporary step back, just until things cooled down. Daniel knew what that meant. Blood in the water. Power doesn't wait for explanations. It replaces you. Ethan confronted Daniel again, this time with proof. Papers laid out on the table. Names. Dates. Signatures. Daniel didn't deny it. Couldn't. He tried to explain, but explanations don't mean much when someone stole your entire origin story. "You decided who I was before I ever got a choice," Ethan said. His voice didn't shake. That hurt worse than anger. Daniel finally said the words he'd been choking on for decades. "I'm your father." The silence that followed was brutal. Ethan stood up, pushing the chair back slowly. "A father don't disappear," he said. "A father don't watch his kid rot on the streets." Then he walked out, leaving Daniel alone with the truth he waited too long to tell. Outside, reporters were gathering. The story was breaking. The powerful man with a buried past. The son who survived it. Daniel watched from the window, realizing control was gone. All he had left was choice. The truth is out. The bond is broken. Daniel risks everything, his name, his freedom, his empire, to make one last move that could either save his son or lose him forever. Daniel sat in his office, staring at the skyline. The city lights blurred together as his mind raced. Everything he built, all those years of grind, sweat, and deals, was teetering on the edge. And it wasn't just about money anymore. It was about Ethan, his son, the kid he left behind, and now had to fight to keep from falling apart again. He called his assistant, low voice, urgency sharp. "Cancel everything. Freeze all public statements. Nobody sees me tonight. No questions, no hesitations." He grabbed a leather jacket and stepped out. The streets were cold, neon reflections bouncing off puddles. Daniel didn't care. He wasn't thinking about optics. He was thinking about damage control in the rawest, realest way possible. Ethan, meanwhile, was pacing the apartment Marissa had let him use. Proof in hand, chest tight with anger and confusion. The way to discovering your father exists but also abandoned you. It's like getting punched by a ghost. He was trying to make sense, trying to decide if he wanted confrontation or to walk away forever. Their paths crossed at the edge of the city, where streetlights met the dark alleyways. Daniel stepped out of his car and saw Ethan waiting, fists clenched, eyes sharp as knives. "We need to talk," Daniel said. "No fluff, no excuses. Just the truth." Ethan's jaw tightened. "You got 30 seconds, he said. 30 seconds to convince him that a lifetime of lies could somehow be worth anything. Daniel laid it all out. Every bad choice, every fear. Every moment he tried to protect his empire, but accidentally hurt the one person who mattered most. Ethan listened, eyes flicking, scanning for lies, searching for sincerity. There were no easy answers. Daniel offered everything he could. Trust, guidance, a shot at a future together. But this time it wasn't charity, it was accountability. Then, out of nowhere, a shadow from Daniel's board of investors appeared. They'd tracked him down, papers in hand, ready to call the press. Threats, lawsuits, ruin. It was all on the table. Daniel realized he couldn't do both, protect his empire and fix his relationship. One choice meant sacrificing the other. Ethan watched the tension, understanding the stakes. For the first time, he saw his father not as a figure of power, but as a man trapped by his own mistakes. "You want to keep your toys," Ethan said bluntly, "or you want to be my dad?" Daniel exhaled, a weight lifting and crushing all at once. The decision was clear. He stepped forward, put himself in the line of fire, ready to take the fall for everything, if it meant his son could stand tall. The siren started wailing in the distance. Daniel knew the night was far from over, but for the first time in decades, he wasn't running from his past. He was charging straight into it, and Ethan was walking beside him. Choices have been made, power lines crossed, and sacrifices set. The aftermath hits hard. Trust must be rebuilt. Lives will change forever, and Daniel might finally get the one thing money could never buy: his son's respect. The dawn broke over the city like it had no idea what had gone down the night before. Daniel and Ethan sat on a rooftop, silent at first, listening to hum of the streets waking up. No words were needed. The chaos of the past days, the lies, the betrayal, the exposure, had already done its damage. But silence had a way of healing too, if you let it. Ethan finally spoke, voice low but steady. "I don't know if I can trust you, not yet." Daniel nodded. He wasn't expecting forgiveness overnight. He'd learned the hard way that some bridges take a lifetime to rebuild. "I get it," he said. "All I'm asking is a shot. Nothing else." That was it. Honest, raw. Stripped of power, stripped of money, stripped of excuses. The city moved beneath them, oblivious to the personal storm that had just passed. Daniel knew he had to make things right, not just with Ethan, but with the world he had nearly destroyed with his ambition. He made calls, cleaned up legal messes, and took responsibility publicly. Not for the empire, not for the board, but for the son he abandoned. Ethan watched him, cautious, evaluating every word, every action. He didn't smile. Not yet. But there was a shift, a crack in the wall of resentment that had kept him hardened for years. For the first time, he saw the man behind the legend, the father behind the mistakes, and he started to believe maybe, just maybe, they could rebuild. They spent the day together, not as CEO and street survivor, but as father and son. Shared meals, small jokes, silent nods. Daniel listened more than he talked. He asked questions about Ethan's life, his struggles, his dreams. And for once, Daniel didn't try to control the answers. He just let them exist. By nightfall, the city lights reflected on the rooftop glass as if blessing their tentative truce. Daniel looked at Ethan and said, "I can't fix everything, but I can try to be here now, every day." Ethan's eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through years of pain. "That's all I want," he said quietly. "Not wealth, not apologies, just presence, real presence." The past would always be a shadow, but now it was one they faced together. Daniel realized something he'd never truly understood. Legacy isn't about money, power, or respect. It's about the people you refuse to leave behind. And Ethan? He was finally home in a way that mattered. The lies are exposed, the wounds are raw, but healing has begun. Daniel and Ethan may have survived the storm, but now it's about what they build together. Redemption isn't free, and life doesn't forgive, but it sure as hell gives second chances to those brave enough to take them.